Most everyone in life aspires to achieve new goals, resolutions, and even bucket lists. But all these journeys begin with one step. The first step to losing weight is a healthy diet and exercise. To learn an instrument requires dedication and practice. The first step to making more money is to acquire the needed education. The first step in reconnecting with God is to start or continue your journey with God. Ready, Set, Go is the perfect solution to starting or continuing your journey with God. It's a 7-day program to get you started that only takes 15 minutes a day. This book will help you understand the basics of what it means to walk with God, giving you the potential to change your life. Whether it does or not is up to you. Ready, Set, Go by Rob Thompson. Time to get serious about God.
I want to talk to you in our last session of what we'll call Follow Me. And it has to do with endurance. You know, one of the things that people miss about the Christian life is that they really begin to miss things like being able to endure. How do I endure? How do I handle the issues of life? How can I go through it? Can I really put up with all of the difficulties that I have? Will I be able to make it? It almost seems like every one of these things are about to crush me. Have you ever had that kind of a day where you thought that this might be my last day? I might actually be crushed at the end of this day. If that's true, wave your hand if that's true. You see, so you know what I'm saying. How many of you understand the SAD disorder? How many of you understand the SAD disorder? If you understand the SAD disorder, raise your hand. You know what a SAD disorder is. SAD disorder, it's interesting because the SAD disorder is the seasonal affective disorder. What that is, it's an actual disease that people 6 months out of the year that they face. What happens is that the moment that wintertime begins to take effect, from that moment until it gets to be into the spring, they are pushed down as people. They don't have a spring in their step. It's like they go into hibernation to a particular level. So in the Christian world, there's a subject that seems to be sorely missing. This area of life isn't necessarily the most popular. As a matter of fact, it's really not popular at all. But if I don't begin to understand it and if I don't begin to embrace it, I'll never be complete as a person. And the subject that I'm referring to is endurance. If you're really going to be a committed believer, if you're ever really going to follow Christ in any part of your life, you will find a place where you will have to endure. Now, endurance and tolerance are two different things. Because tolerance means that I'm just willing to put up with something, and many people do that. Many people are willing to tolerate issues and call it endurance when it's not. Endurance actually is able to stand in the face of everything that is wrong, but still refuse to give up the declaration of everything that is right. Endurance is the willingness to suffer persecution, even after the threat is being given to you that you will have great loss if you don't change. Endurance just so happens, my friends, to be very interesting. Jesus said it like this in Matthew chapter 24, verse number 13. He said this, he said, "But he that shall endure unto the end shall be saved." The person that endures. The American Heritage Dictionary, what that says is that endurance is the adhering to a course of action. It's adhering, it's sticking to it. It's the refusal to give it up. It's adhering to the course of action. That is the issue. Can you adhere to this course of action? Endurance stays on a course even in the face of difficulty. I'll remain on that course. I will do those things that I must. I will stand for the things that are necessary, even if I lose. Even in the face of ridicule, even in the face of gossip, even in the face of rejection, I still will endure. Endurance adds the idea of continuing under the resistance of adversity. Now, the reason why I want to tell you that the reason why that I am speaking about this, friends, is because I know this to be true. That the road of God's will is paved with delight and disappointment. I heard a man that I tremendously respect. I respect him hugely. A guy that I never even in my life got to meet, but he was someone that I knew that I could have met him if I really would have postured correctly in years gone by. And he died, and I didn't get to meet him. But he was a man in many ways that I've patterned my life after to a particular level. Someone so dedicated and someone so good that I never even felt that I was worthy to be able to know this person as a human. And he said these words one day that actually shocked me to a particular point, but I knew that somehow, that some way, what he said was true. He said that life, when you boil it down, if you don't understand how to fill it, life will only go from disappointment to disappointment. That the places that a person remembers about life is at the moments where they were disappointed. And the rest of their life begins to be lived through the eyes of that disappointment rather than through the eyes of victory. He said, you must beware. Endurance is the ability to really look for the prize at the end of the road and still be willing to stand against all opposition. It's interesting, Linda and I were flying in, wasn't really that long ago, but we're flying in, and as we were flying in, there was a flight attendant, a stewardess, I guess, because it was a woman, and I want to read to you the story she told me. I'm reading you the story and not telling you the story because I don't want to miss some of the details. I said a few years ago, Linda and I were flying in, and we had a flight attendant whose husband had lost his job after 24 years. They brought him right up to the moment of retirement and fired him. You understand? He lost his job after this 24 years as a chemical engineer. The sad part was that they actually fired him when he had cancer. This flight attendant has her parents living with them as well. But her father has cancer too. She doubles her flight time because she's the only breadwinner in the family because her husband cannot work. She works 6 days, and then they make her take a day off because she works doubles. We were coming in that night around 9 o'clock. Our flight was late getting in. But it was Saturday night. And she has an 8-year-old boy she only sees once a week. She sleeps in the airport so she can see her family for a day before going out again. I wrote, I was blown away. Blown away. Maybe more than any other time in my entire life, I was blown away by this woman's attitude. I have never seen anybody approach life this way. And the last time that I saw her was I saw her running through the airport after we got off the plane at 9, hoping that she just might catch the last flight home. And then when she gets there, she has to drive an hour and a half from the airport. And that's what I wanted to share with you this morning. I want to tell you what happened. What happens to the people that actually make us what we are? Where do they go? What happens to them? Did you ever wonder what happened to certain people after the moments that you knew them? Let me take you through some of the things that occurred. Let us go all the way to the end of our message. I said, let me conclude with some examples of those who paid a great price, but endured until the end. Everyone knows Stephen. He was preaching the gospel in Jerusalem on the Passover after Christ's crucifixion. And he was cast out of the city and stoned to death. And about 2,000 Christians right at that time suffered martyrdom in AD 34. James, the son of Zebedee, and the elder brother of John, was killed when Herod Agrippa arrived as governor of Judea. Many early disciples were martyred under Agrippa's rule, including Timon and Parmenas. Philip, a disciple from Bethsaida in Galilee, suffered martyrdom at Heliopolis in Phrygia. He was scourged and thrown into prison, and afterwards he was crucified in 54 AD. Matthew, the tax collector from Nazareth, who wrote a gospel in Hebrew, was preaching in Ethiopia when he suffered martyrdom by the sword. He was killed. James, the brother of Jesus, administered the early church in Jerusalem and was the author of a book, as you know. At the age of 94, he was beat and stoned and finally had his brains bashed out with a fuller's club. Matthias was the apostle who filled the vacant place of Judas Iscariot. Even Matthias was stoned, and then they beheaded him before his death. Andrew, the brother of Peter, preached the gospel throughout Asia. On his arrival at Edessa, he was arrested and crucified on a cross, the two ends of which were fixed transversely in the ground, thus the term St. Andrew's Cross. Kev, hold that for a second. Let me tell you what St. Andrew's Cross is. This is St. Andrew's Cross. It is an X. His body was spread apart and crucified and mutilated as a person. That's why they call it St. Andrew's Cross. You find certain things. You find certain flags around the world that actually have that. One is Norway, is probably the most explicit of all, where it has the blue cross coming transversely through it. It was St. Andrew's Cross. Mark was converted to Christianity by Peter and then transcribed Peter's account of Jesus in his gospel. Mark was dragged to pieces by the people of Alexandria in front of Serapis, their pagan idol. Peter was condemned to death and crucified at Rome. Jerome holds that Peter was crucified upside down at his own request because he said he was unworthy to be crucified in the same manner of his Lord. Paul suffered in the first persecution under Nero because of the converting impact he was having on people in the face of martyrdom. He was led to a private place outside the city where he gave his neck to the sword. If you remember the Apostle Paul's death, there were 2 swords. Man, I'm sure glad you're sitting there today. Nero put him in between 2 trees that crossed. And they did not cut his head off with 1 sword. They actually took 2 swords, crossed them, and then they cut his head off like they were razor blades. Paul was not treated kindly by Nero, of course. Jude, the brother of James, was commonly called Thaddeus. He was crucified in Edessa. Bartholomew was cruelly beaten and crucified. Thomas was thrust through with spears by pagan priests. Luke, the author of the gospel under his name, was supposedly hanged on an olive tree by idolatrous priests in Greece. Barnabas preached in Africa and Britain. Barnabas preached in Africa and Britain, where he was crucified. John, the beloved disciple, was the brother of James, and although he suffered, even being boiled in oil, they could not kill him. He was imprisoned, where he wrote the book of Revelation, and he was the only apostle who escaped martyrdom. Many times what happens to us is that we tend to think that Christianity is a good time. And a good time it is. But Christianity is not, friends, a walk with God. Is not where what I do is that I only want to embrace the positive parts of life. Because by embracing endurance and by enduring difficulties that each and every one of us face, it builds within us the very things which prepare and qualify us for a future for which all of us look. Eternity with our King. Your reward awaits you. Never believe for a moment that God has forsaken you when times seem hard. Never think for a moment that He believes that there's something wrong with your faith, or there's something wrong and that you were the one or you were the reason why that all of these negative things had occurred. Don't believe it. But embrace the beauty that comes by enduring. Because he that endures to the end, the same, he'll be saved. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 13.
Rob Thompson Ministries is a benevolent, global-serving, nonprofit organization that reaches beyond its borders to help those in need, in crisis, or those unable to care for themselves due to economic or government mandates. Richard Stearns once said, "If you take away my health, you have taken away my energy and my industry. If you take away my energy and ability to support my family, you have taken away my dignity. And if you take away my dignity, you have taken away my hope for the future, for my children, for a better life." Because of Dr. Thompson's compassion for those who are hurting and his desire to see lives transformed, RTM continues to increase its educational and humanitarian efforts and the many opportunities available for changing lives all over the world.
Rob Thompson Ministries also partners with teams around the world to see its vision come to fruition, to produce lasting change in the lives of people touched by life's extreme challenges. The RTM team uses a three-part holistic approach to accomplish this vision. Let's take a look into the many causes and projects that Rob Thompson Ministries supports and how this holistic approach has touched the lives of tens of thousands of people throughout the years. The first part of this approach is found in education. The challenges faced by many developing countries is that governments lack either the financial resources or the political will to meet their people's educational needs. Often because the traditions of the culture, there is no real understanding of where the sickness and disease originate or how it can be prevented. RTM provides safe havens, schooling, and much more to those who are hurting.
In the border town of Reynosa, Mexico, infants and teens are being kidnapped and murdered for their body parts. The selling of these body parts on the black market generates large amounts of money for the drug cartels. These murders take place daily. Through the local efforts of Alleluia Ministries, the contributions of RTM partners not only help to keep the children off the streets and provide them a place of safety, but also help finance their education so they can live a life of purpose, dignity, and hope. The work of sharing the gospel, caring for the sick, and feeding the homeless is also carried out. It only takes $1 to purchase a bag of beans, which will feed a family of 6. It doesn't take much to make a difference. In India, abandonment of children is rampant. There is little or no regard for human life, especially if the child is a girl. A portion of our partners' monthly donations help to feed, educate, clothe, and bring preventative medicines to over 100 boys and 40 girls at the House of Hope orphanages.
In Uganda, after witnessing children scavenging food from a dumpster in Kampala, Dr. Thompson made the decision, never again will a child need to do this. That is when the Never Again project was birthed. Daily meals, housing, medical care, clothing, and education are provided to these orphan boys who would have probably died living in the streets. Over 400 boys have been rescued, and almost 20 have moved on to college and have learned vocational skills so they can provide for others. The second part of RTM's holistic approach is accomplished by providing humanitarian efforts such as sponsoring free dental and medical clinics and providing clean drinking water.
In Haiti, there's only one dentist for every 100,000 people, and many children have never seen a toothbrush or toothpaste. In 2013, RTM sent a team to educate these dear people on the benefits of proper hygiene, as well as provide a free dental medical clinic. In 5 days, through partner donations of services and equipment, the team examined and cleaned the teeth of 200 patients, provided 140 sealant and fluoride treatments, performed extractions, and provided medicines and medical treatments that totaled well over $24,000 in services.
In Russia, on any given day, one might find volunteers crawling down sewer tunnels, making their way through huge piles of rubble, or scouring handmade shelters near the railroads as they rescue society's unwanted, the lost, the sick, and abandoned children of Moscow. Vitamins and medicines are distributed daily to thousands of the elderly. Food and clothing are provided to the poor and the widows, and the gospel is shared with all. Our partners' faithful contributions are life-giving and life-changing. When natural disasters hit the U.S. or abroad, RTM jumps in to help. Whether it is through financial support or sending aid, our team is ready to move. Your dollars help to purchase the medical and dental supplies that are needed to run our overseas clinics, as well as funding day-to-day operating expenses. Just recently, RTM financially supported the cleanup and rebuilding efforts after a horrific typhoon hit the Philippines on November 8th. In 2012, we partnered with Rotary International and finished a 5-year plan to bring clean water to the Petén jungle in Guatemala.
And finally, the third part of RTM's holistic approach is to provide spiritual food by sharing the gospel. The core passion and motivation behind every RTM mission trip is the gospel message of hope and transformation. There can be no greater theme and no higher calling for the believer than to bear witness to salvation in and through Christ. Whether we gather the hurting together in a church, a squatter's camp, a school, a nursing home, or on a street corner, the good news of Jesus Christ is always shared. And to date, hundreds of thousands have heard the message. In 2013, an RTM team was able to enter the public schools in George, South Africa, and visit many hospitals, nursing homes, and schools for the handicapped, where they shared encouragement, prayer, and the gospel message with the people. On one trip to the Philippines, over 1,200 teens received Christ.
Barbara Bush, the wife of our 41st president, said, "Never lose sight of the fact that the most important yardstick of your success will be how you treat other people, your family, friends, and coworkers, and even strangers you meet along the way."
As you have seen the many projects and causes that Rob Thompson Ministries supports, we hope it has not only raised an awareness of the suffering going on around us,
But by partnering with us with your monthly contribution, together,
We can produce
lasting change.
Lasting change.
we can produce lasting change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God's word is an escape route for you to come out of your problems. You can escape from your challenges. You can escape from the poverty. You can escape from the attitudes. You can escape from the discontentedness. You can escape from all of those things. Those things are so deeply embedded in you that the only way around any of this is when you acknowledge every good thing that is in you in Christ Jesus.
And there are people here in this church tonight that God has preserved for higher things. There are people that have been divorced. There are people that have been bankrupt. There are people that have been ill. You've had all manner of things happen to you, but God has preserved you for higher things. You've got dreams inside trying to get out, and you keep pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back. But you need to look for signals and ignore the cost.
If you are in the Tinley Park area, we would love for you to join us at any of our services. We have a 5 p.m. service on Saturdays, and on Sundays we have a 9:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. service. We also have a midweek service on Wednesdays at 7:15 p.m. With over 30 years of ministry, FHC has something for everyone. To find out more about FHC, like us on Facebook or go to our website, fhclife.org, or call our office at 708-614-6000. We look forward to seeing you soon.